Today I'm going to be talking about how El Salvador adopts Bitcoin as the official currency. Federal unemployment insurance is going to be ending soon. George Soros says you shouldn't invest in China, and is the everything bubble about to burst? So let's get right into it. Now, El Salvador is not the kind of country you would think of as a place that would adopt Bitcoin as the official currency. The US dollar and Bitcoin are not official currency of El Salvador. And the truth is, El Salvador is a $26 billion economy. It's not a very big economy at all. A lot of people in the Bitcoin community got very, very excited about this. But I must say it's a little bit odd because crypto was first started as a libertarian idea that we don't need this damn state. We have cryptocurrency. We don't need states. We have our cryptocurrency and we can do what we want. We don't need their grubby hands on things. So it's a little bit odd in a way that the crypto community was all for El Salvador forcing people to accept Bitcoin, even though a lot of the people in El Salvador don't want to take Bitcoin. There actually were even protests against it. And I think I read a news story, someone was trying to buy something and then the merchant was not pleased if someone wants to buy it in Bitcoin because they just either don't know how to use it or it's a little complicated. I think it's still a very early stage of Bitcoin. Not everybody wants to use it. The other thing, it's a little bit complicated because like let's say you want to buy something. In one story, someone wanted to buy something and the merchant didn't have the public key, the one where you send the money to. So I think that there's going to definitely be a learning curve. On the other hand, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens with remittances because apparently El Salvador gets a lot of money through remittances from people in the US. So it's definitely going to hurt Western Union because people will be sending money to friends and relatives in El Salvador with Bitcoin, and there'll be very, very low fees to do that. So that's one great thing because nobody wants to go to Western Union, and it's always in a bad part of town. So you have the benefit of less crime and not having to worry about that. But in general, it's more like a beta test to see what happens when one particular country adopts Bitcoin. Like, yes, some countries ban Bitcoin, like China. Then one country is forcing people to use it, whether they want to or not. But I honestly think that the irony of this, and I think I've seen this in a story, is that the merchants are not pricing things in Bitcoin. They're kind of pricing it in US dollars, and then they convert it to Bitcoin. So that's if it really is a currency, shouldn't it be like, oh, this apple is 0.001 Bitcoin? So you have to wonder if that will be something that happens one day. And if you've been sitting around at home catching up on Netflix because you got pandemic unemployment insurance, well, your luck is about to run out because the pandemic unemployment insurance program is starting to expire. It actually recently expired. Some states have added extra kind of gimmicks, like California has a one-time stimulus payment during this time period where federal unemployment insurance is expiring. But the truth is that this is finally coming to an end, and a lot of people, especially economists, have said, look, if you pay people not to work, you are going to get a shortage in workers. The truth is, your local restaurant can't compete with the federal government handing out free money to people. People are just taking the money and saying, well, I don't need to be a waiter because I'm making $300 a week, which is actually pretty good. So I think that this is going to be definitely a unique time period because I think people will be returning back to work at a lot of restaurants. It might be bad for some industries like video game manufacturers. Maybe there'll be fewer people at home playing video games because they have to return to work and they won't be able to just sit around. I actually think it's a really bad thing when you're paying people not to work for long periods of time because their skills start to atrophy and they just are not getting in the right momentum. They're not getting enough stimulation from real interaction with people. And you can see that it's starting to cause weird tensions in the country because on the one hand, some people are going to be doing really well because they are working and they're investing, and then other people are almost literally becoming dependent on these benefits continuing forever. And in fact, some YouTube channels are even based upon when's the next stimulus happen, when's this happening, when am I going to get more extra goodies. And that's a really bad mindset to have, because you're not even thinking about how you are the one who has to make this happen, because this financial channel is all about how you can make this kind of progress happen. And if you're expecting Congress to care about you or try to fix problems, let's face it, that's not going to happen. I never met anyone who said, I got the stimulus payment and I was set for life and it really set me on the right direction. It doesn't usually work that way. It's nice if you get the check. I mean, I did put the money in Bitcoin when I got my stimulus check, but I'm not thinking in terms of it changed my life in a fundamental way, because it really shouldn't. And next, George Soros says we should not invest in China. Now, George Soros is an interesting boogeyman. I would say kind of reasonably a boogeyman, because he funds a lot of things that are unpopular. But on this issue, he actually is quite right. He's saying that Americans and large institutions should not be investing in China because we're funding an authoritarian government that could be doing all kinds of things when people invest their money in. And it's not a very transparent society whatsoever. As an example, Luckin Coffee. What's funny is Luckin Coffee, my friend once said, oh, think of name one company that's successful in China, and I gave the name Luckin Coffee, and 2 weeks later it was down like 80 or 90%. And the truth is that there's so many reasons why you should not be investing in China. For one thing, it helps China to build up their really large military. And at one point in time in the future, maybe we will have to confront this, unfortunately. And it would be really, really unfortunate if have to fund both sides. You have to fund the US military and the Chinese military as a result of your investments. That's not a good idea. Number two, you have a society that has no rule of law, which means that at the just spur of the moment, they could pass a law and just declare your investment null and void. And as an example, this has happened countless times. China has basically banned private tutoring, after school tutoring, and there are some American companies, or actually Chinese companies, listed on American exchanges, and people have lost a lot of money on that, because if they can't make money, the investors are going to lose money, and that's really, really no good. You don't want to invest in a society like that. Now, there are a lot of crazy politicians in the US, but I can't imagine any of them, not even the ones I don't like at all. I can't think of any of them banning private after school tutoring. So that shows you when you have a communist dictatorship, they could just pass any kind of weird scheme like that. And then third, China has not been open about letting private auditors, American auditors, into their country to inspect the books. And a lot of this has to do with, in a communist society, they don't really like to be very open and transparent about anything, and that includes their so-called private companies. And that's really why you shouldn't be investing there. And George Soros is basically, he talks about the open society. We can debate if he really believes in an open society. I have my own doubts, but the truth is he knows that China is the opposite of an open society. There are no private groups. There are no such thing as a private company really in China, because every company basically becomes big as a result of its participation with the Chinese Communist Party. There really is no such thing as a truly organic, large private company. It doesn't exist. Even Jack Ma was a member of the Communist Party, and he just said some things. He wasn't even that critical of Xi or the Communist Party. He just had some criticisms of financial regulations in China. Not that controversial. And he basically disappeared until he promised not to be a bad boy anymore. So you don't want to invest in a society like that. And then finally, the question that we all want to know is the everything bubble going to crash? As you know, stocks, bonds, real estate, crypto, trading cards, classic cars, NFTs, everything is going to the moon, because it's the everything bubble. Is because the Federal Reserve is pumping out so much money into the economy. It's just basically hyperinflation mode, more and more money printing. But the truth is that at some point in time, yes, even with the money printing, a collapse happens because the economy cannot really sustain this, and at some point in time, the money printing ends, and they will raise interest rates, and the party will come to an end. But until then, this is probably one of the longest streaks in human history, because you have March of 2009. That was when the Federal Reserve was extremely aggressive in basically stopping the stock market and the real estate market from crashing. They didn't want it to go down, and that was basically the market trying to create a sense of normalcy. Prices were trying to revert to their real value. And that's one reason why even to this day you have some companies that are extremely overvalued, especially because there's almost literally no revenue, like Virgin Galactic. But these companies are trading in the stratosphere for no apparent reason. And the truth is, you almost have to remain invested, because the alternative, holding cash, is extremely expensive as well. You really almost have no choice but to remain invested in a very scary time period, because everybody who's not a fool realizes that things are a little bit elevated. Well, not a little, they're really elevated. But at some point in time, things will come crashing down. And one way to try to avoid losing a lot of money is by perhaps looking at some indicators before things start to crash. Like Investors Business Daily, they actually make market calls about whether we're in a bull or a bear market, and whether you should sell your stocks and ETFs and hold more cash. So that's one way of avoiding losing a lot of money in a stock market crash, just trying to go for something that's like a market indicator. They will always publish that day to day. Right now, it's a confirmed uptrend, but if the market were to crash, way before crash, they would say, hey, you should sell and put your money into cash. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Definitely subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.